You know, guys, every week on each new episode, I continue to think about the name that we gave ourselves as the sports agents of chaos. And and throughout the summer, I was like, when is this name finally gonna, match the show? When are we finally gonna get a week of news in football to really match what the show title is? We didn't have to wait that long in the regular season, ladies and gentlemen. Following a chaotic week one, it's only right that we have what has quickly become the fastest growing football podcast in America by our metrics. What they are, no idea. But we're just going to take it as facts, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another weekend of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. Joined as your usual, I would assume your new favorite trio here in the world. Iceman Jerg introing things as always with my two compatriots. First off, a man, yes, it looks different today. Do not adjust your laptops, ladies and gentlemen. He has a brand spanking new laptop himself. Justin, how are you doing? It's good to see you in like full in HD color now.
It's good to have the ability to do that, man, because I was on the verge of like throwing laptops out windows. So it's nice to have like actual resolution and not be worried that I'm gonna cut out at any second or all that stuff. So hopefully we get some consistency with this nice new toy I got.
Perfect. And I trust me, as long as you don't have Xfinity Wi-Fi, I think you'll be good to go. But speaking of at least the urge to throw something out the window, will we see something thrown out the window as he is in his car, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, there is no man more dedicated to the podcast craft than this one. Pod Father Rick. Rick, how are we doing?
The title says it all. I don't even know anymore, man. Honestly, I don't even know. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I guess I'm okay. I'm currently on the road with y'all today on the New Jersey Turnpike on my way to Baltimore, and can't miss this for the world. So I stopped off at a rest stop, did a quick change, got some Antians, and so I figured, what the hell? I'll join y'all for a podcast. So this will be fun. This will be a nice long way to keep me sane on my 180-mile drive straight. So good times.
Yes, and we have a challenge here, ladies and gentlemen. Guess in the comments on Facebook and Twitter, do you think we'll finish the pod by the time Rick is finished with the 180 miles straight? We'll see how that goes there. Well, while we have Rick in one way live, we also have a pre-recorded video that he gave us. There will be no trivia this week for several reasons, in part because we have no Sandoval this week, per usual. We need to have the two greatest rivals go up against each other, but mainly also because we got to fit this video in some way. This was from earlier in the week, ladies and gentlemen. This was Rick doing another taste test for all of you, and he gave it a little pizzazz on this one. I'll let the video speak for itself.
All right, welcome to, I guess this is going to be the pilot episode for my new podcast called First Sipspressions. I wouldn't recommend doing what I'm about to do right now. It is 7:30 in the morning on a Tuesday, and we are going to try the Coca-Cola Marshmallow Edition, which is the limited edition watermelon and strawberry Coca-Cola, as you see here with Marshmallow, the DJ, on it. They come in 12 fluid ounce cans, 140 calories per, 0 sugar or regular. I'm an American, so I like regular, not 0 sugar. So let's see how this goes. Now, I must say going in, I'm not really a watermelon or strawberry fan myself personally. The flavoring's a little funky. I like watermelon lemonade occasionally, but I do have to say, this might actually be a hit. This is actually subtle. The flavors aren't overpowering, and in a way, it's kind of refreshing in a sense. It takes away the cokey flavor, the standard flavor, and replaces it with a nice little like summery vibe in a sense. So I gotta say this, collaborate more with Marshmallow, because this is actually a really good drink there. I'm definitely gonna go in for a second one off camera, but good job to you. But again, don't do this at 7:30 in the morning, kids. Have soda if you're gonna have it at a regular time, or honestly, just don't have it at all. Don't be like me. Thank you.
Muted here.
My bad. That was absolutely wonderful.
I mean, look, yeah. I mean, listen, like I said, don't do it at 7:30 in the morning like I did, but I did that for you, for all the podcast viewers. 7:30 in the morning, soda drinking. So.
It was wonderful, the process. Was Justin, you were on the text, he was like, hey Jurgen, did you get my video? I'm like, what video? While I'm like disorientated at work, he's like, I sent you a video, and I'm just like, oh, this is gonna be good. I could already tell by the title. Rick, how long did it take you to finish that thing once you turned the camera off?
Well, I turned the camera off, went into the office, logged in for the day. So probably about, I slowly enjoyed it. So maybe about 10 minutes. It's a small can, so you could probably crush it if you wanted to, but it actually wasn't that bad. Like I said, it was definitely a different experience than I was expecting. So, if you can find it and have it. It's actually pretty good.
There we go. It gets a thumbs up. So the first episode of the First Sipspressions podcast, we got a thumbs up for the new drink that was tried this week. Will that be a continuous trend? Not sure about that, but we'll see. But speaking of trends, ladies and gentlemen, of course, as I always praise on the show, along with the most dedicated man in podcasting today, I'm also joined by a future game show host in American television. Justin is here. Like I said, sadly, no trivia, but we do have a little bit of Would You Rather. We got a little bit of twist here because Rick, with the first expression, the first episode of that, he came with his own Would You Rather. So I can't wait, honestly, for the two Would You Rathers that we have between the two gentlemen today. Justin, per ritual, actually, who wants to start off with their Would You Rather? Justin, the usual, or Rick? Do you want to throw yours on the table first?
This is Justin's game show. I'll let him make the call.
Justin, you're the host when it comes to the Would You Rathers.
All right. You know what? I'll go first, and then I'm excited to participate. So that's like the cream on top for me. So we were going around the players last week, and now that we've gotten week 1 under our belts, and technically for one of these players we got week 2 under their belts, I was curious, who do you think is going to have more success for an entire season? Who's going to have the better season? Is it going to be Sammy Watkins or Juju Smith-Schuster?
Well, I think most likely I'm speaking for both me and Rick here. I'll start with this one. I think it's probably going to end up being Juju. I think he's very comfortable already in that Kansas City Chiefs offense. Even if there are going to be some issues here and there, I think you can already see that he likes what they're doing in KC. I think he likes the kind of game plan that Andy Reid is going to be able to strategize on a weekly basis. But I think the biggest thing as to why, and it's not necessarily the quarterback comparison between Rodgers and Mahomes. I think when Juju, let's be real here, a combination of injury issues plus the steep decline of Big Ben his last 2 seasons, in particular in Pittsburgh, were a big factor. And I think if he can have a clean bill of health, you have Patrick Mahomes now throwing it to you, arguably. I don't even know if it's arguable. I think you could say that's the best quarterback in all of football. There's no better, transition of guys to go into. So I'm going to say Juju. Sadly, Sammy Watkins let me down. We didn't get week 1 Sammy this time around, and I just don't know if that means he's going to have a really good overall season if he had to sacrifice week 1. I'm iffy on that, so I'll run with Juju here.
But that's the thing, Jerk, is that we're all hyping up Sammy Watkins week 1, and he didn't really have the game. So to me, that means Sammy Watkins week 2 will come out and be a star. Obviously, that's how it's going to go. I have a lot of questions about the Chiefs' offense. I know Mahomes lost his main weapon in Tyreek Hill. He's still got Travis Kelce, but that wide receiving core to me is a bit of a question mark. So I think if Aaron Rodgers can get the ship righted, which I'm pretty sure he can this week, I think Sammy Watkins is going to start to kind of level up and be the Sammy Watkins that we know that he is. I mean, yes, he's on the older side, but at the same time, I feel like he's a case where he'll be able to be okay. I mean, the Packers need somebody to step up. Christian Watson dropped an easy 75-yard touchdown last week, and they have nobody else. So Sammy Watkins, I think, has to be that guy to step up. So I'd rather go with him. I think he'll have more success this year. It's not an indictment on Juju because that offense is going to be high-powered. I think it's more of a Green Bay needs a step-up wide receiver, and so therefore it's Sammy Watkins.
Hey, but very fair, and you bring up a good point. I think someone has to step up in that Packers locker room, literally, unless one of the 3 of us is going to go to Wisconsin to try out for the position at some point. I don't know if any of us will leave our current jobs to do for that specific team.
I'll give it a shot.
I think you do, Justin. I think you can be the slot receiver. I think you can run the slot.
You know how slow I am.
Where do you think, Jerk, where do you think Sandoval is right now? Hello?
Oh man, I would have figured that Sandoval wouldn't want to go to Green Bay. Too much cheese and dairy for him. I thought he was more traditional.
Well, I offered him a deal: either go quarterback for Dallas or try to be a wide receiver in Green Bay. So he took Green Bay because no one wants to go to Dallas anyways.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We'll talk about that in a few moments. Of course, one of the big storylines that came out of week one. But before we get to that, like I said, we do have two Would You Rathers. Justin came through on his end. Rick, what is this Would You Rather? First off, I'm excited because Justin actually, Justin stays true to it as a host. He doesn't participate in the Would You Rathers. Like how Jeopardy hosts and etc. They don't participate in the game. So, Rick, give us this Would You Rather.
So I feel kind of like when Pat Sajak had laryngitis and I'm Vanna White taking over hosting Wheel of Fortune for the one episode. So that's where I am. This is kind of, we talked about it a little bit earlier on with first-year head coaches. But what I want to know is, of the four that got their first win as a head coach last week, who do you think had the most impressive coaching acumen in their win? Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings, Mike McDaniel with the Dolphins, Brian Daboll, or someone fourth man who I can't remember who it was at this point in time. I'm driving here, leave me alone.
Yeah, you good. Don't worry about it, Rick. Don't worry about it. That's an interesting one. O'Connell, Daboll, well, clearly.
Matt Eberflus. Matt Eberflus of Chicago was the fourth guy.
Not Nathaniel Hackett.
He didn't win.
I'm sorry. Let's go on press conference. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Next day press conference.
Oh man. I don't. That's a
I do want to say Hackett made my list. I picked the Broncos. That should have been an easy win for them. And the Seahawks look good. They look surprisingly good. They really made that Broncos team look bad. So,
Justin, are you taking receipts now on Nathaniel Hackett? Is that what this is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Every time he gets failed by someone, every time someone fails him for the Pick'em challenge, Justin's gonna
Pick'ems were rough. The bets were terrible.
Yeah.
But
anyway. So real quick, just so the people keep track. So on this week's pick challenge, Justin is going to pick first because he tragically finished in last. Me and Rick tied for second, I believe, or first. I forget necessarily.
We went tied for first. You, me, and that damn deer.
All right. So on the first week, Sandoval did beat someone. I'm shocked it wasn't me, but he did tie to us. Justin's so bad right now. I think it's only actually poetic that it was Justin that fell first, but Justin will get the first pick. I think. Are you or me getting the second pick, Rick? Did we decide that? Is it me?
We kept it the same order, so I'll pick second and you get the third and fourth.
I'm cool with that. So Justin gets first, Rick will get second, I get third, and then of course it's the snake format for the 4 games, and whatever is left, of course, goes to that damn deer, and he'll probably beat us again.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I still got a Would You Rather to answer.
Yeah, true. So that's more for down the line. I'll remind the people. But Justin,
I am torn because I think that two of the wins were very impressive. Eberflus was okay. I mean, I was surprised that they won, and I'd like to attribute some of that to the rain, but he played and coached a decent game. But I'm torn on whether or not I want to think of the total domination that was in Miami in week 1 against, the Patriots, who dominated the division for so long, and Brian Daboll just, letting it all hang out and willing his team to win a tough game against the Titans, who really should have been way farther ahead. I'm surprised that there's some of their play calling and things like that. So, I'm gonna, as much as I want to stay true to the New York guys and give Daboll the edge there, I was so impressed with the way Miami came out. I mean, the offense struggled a little bit at times, but the Patriots defense is still very good, and that game wasn't close. I mean, it looked like maybe at the end the Patriots might score a couple garbage time points, but this score does not indicate how far the difference was between those two teams. Mac Jones looked like a joke. He was not able to do anything against that Miami defense, who came out swinging. And, if they can get Tua slinging that ball like a lot of people think he can, that's not one of them, but a lot of people think that he can really hit those open guys, he's going to be very good. So we'll see how his coaching career continues. McDaniel's down there in Miami, but it's a very impressive week 1 win. They looked like a disciplined team. They were strong, and it was never close in Miami.
Yeah, the way that I see it is, all the 3 main coaches we'll discuss, because Matt Eberflus, he definitely deserves the props, but you got to say there's got to be a little bit of eyebrow raising considering they essentially played in a monsoon and got that one. So but I'll give him the respect. They did end up winning that game. Very close, ugly game as well, which honestly the 49ers actually tend to be the type to win those kinds of games. So do credit and respect to Eberflus and the Bears. You could argue that the other three coaches, they all did God's work in some sort of way. McDaniel and the Dolphins, they did AFC East fans, work for them with beating the Patriots as soundly as they did. Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings, they did NFC North fans work for beating the Packers as soundly as they did. And the Giants truly did God's work in my world by defeating the Tennessee Titans the way they did. So all three of those coaches, you could argue, they did the Lord's work on Sunday, which is only proper that it's done on Sunday as well. If I had to argue in terms of impressive, I just think as soundly as it was, I was really impressed with the resolve that the Giants had. And I think this is why a head coach in certain instances can really make that difference. And I think Brian Daboll being a better voice for the New York Giants this year compared to what they had the last few seasons over Joe Judge, I think that's a big deal. I think Daniel Jones, he wasn't perfect, but he played, I think, with a bit more confidence than I think we've seen from him so far. And I really think that's actually going to be a big difference here. I think with Daniel Jones, is he going to most likely still have some turnover issues this season? Yes, but the confidence, as my friends always say, the confidence, the way you carry yourself, I think that was a big difference. And I think Daniel Jones showed some people something that I think they were down and they came back, and I don't think the Giants win that game, from the last 3 seasons. So you got to give them a lot of props for winning the game the way they did. A little bit of luck with the Randy Bullock miss, yes, but at the end of the day, hey, sometimes by hook or by crook, you get the victory, and they are 1-0 for the first time, like they're above 500 for the first time in God knows how long. So, props to the Giants.
Well, listen, week 1 was a horrible week for kickers. No offense, Jerk. We know this for a fact. It was. But I agree with you about Daboll because the guts and the resolve, and you want to talk about a culture change, that immediately is your culture change for that Giants program. Because you know that Joe Judge, Pat Shurmur, and Ben McAdoo either all would have elected to kick the PAT and go to overtime or have botched the 2-point conversion trying something funky. Now, Daboll did something a little funky, but it worked. But the guts to do that and to have it pay off, that is the reverse Nathaniel Hackett right there. That's exactly what it is. And I also want to say Kevin O'Connell, I know we didn't say much about him, but you want to talk about total systematic beatdown of a divisional opponent? That game against Green Bay was something. And I'm not saying that I picked them to win and got 3 points out of that. I'm just saying it was an absolute demolition of what people are saying. I know Justin said it was a really good Green Bay team, so interesting that you had that too.
I do want to point that out because I don't want to take anything from Minnesota. That was a great win. But the reason that I didn't pick him is because I think that Green Bay got destroyed because of their coaching. Because any team that decides they're going up against arguably the best receiver in football in Justin Jefferson and is not going to put their number 1 corner that they just signed for all that money, Jair Alexander, on Justin Jefferson, and in fact are going to play zone and off of Justin Jefferson and let him run free the entire game. It's not even like they made a halftime adjustment when he had 135 yards and a touchdown. They let him run free in that game. So as much as I want to give O'Connell credit, Packers I couldn't choose him as my top coach, knowing all that stuff happened. Alexander was like, this is what they wanted.
Fair. I will say this, Justin. I think arguably the biggest impact of any of the first-year coaches so far, because Tua looked fine but not spectacular. Daniel Jones looked fine but not spectacular. If you want to talk about which first-time head coach is going to have the biggest impact on an individual player, Justin Jefferson was already great. If Kevin O'Connell is going to find a way to take advantage of defenses and scheme JJ the way that he did just that first week, Justin Jefferson might break 2K yards. I don't even think that's hyperbole right there. He was slicing and dicing that Packers defense. And like you said, and like you mentioned, Justin, the few times that Jair Alexander was close to Jet, it wasn't even close because he was in that rhythm the whole game. Like they
didn't put him on. They put him in man. They put him in zone, and they let Jair take a side of the field away. Which Jair Alexander is a top cornerback in the league. He was fantastic. He played well in that game. They did not have the zone scheme properly to cover Justin Jefferson, which is why you saw him running across the field with no one around him so often in that game. So often. And the idea that you're not going to make that halftime adjustment after he burned you in the first half and say, all right, we're going to change up our scheme a little bit. We'll still play zone. We'll have Jair, Shadow, Justin Jefferson, and they will give them help over the top because this is the best receiver in football, and he is destroying us right now. Instead, they were like, let's let him keep running. And they got wrecked. And I can't believe the score was that close. I know they got some garbage time points at the end, but that game should have been a lot worse.
Yeah, Green Bay should have been shut out. Legitimately, they you could argue they should have been shut out.
Again, keep this in mind too. Kevin O'Connell last year was the O coordinator for Cooper Kupp, who won the Triple Crown. So there's nothing that can be said that Justin Jefferson might not be heading towards that trajectory again.
Yeah, that's very much a fair point. Very much a fair point. And I mean, we already did so much on that game. I don't think we need to touch too much upon it in this next segment. Our NFL Week in Review, what we're going to be doing on a weekly basis, ladies and gentlemen, is really going over some of the big stories and happenings that happened. Brilliant sentencing structure right there. Basically, the biggest events that happened over the previous week of the season, separate from the Thursday night game which happened, which we will talk about the Thursday night after we finish the week in review, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to just run through a couple more big things that happened. Rick, you already mentioned it, and we might as well go over it a little bit right here. The absolute absurdity of kickers and how up and down it went throughout the games this season. So you had a game that became very close because, once again, this team choked the New Orleans Saints versus the Atlanta Falcons. The Saints end up winning that game, thankfully, by a made field goal, by Will Lutz with just under 20 seconds left. So there's the good side of it that happened on Sunday. But then there was a lot of bad. There was the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cincinnati Bengals game. The Cincinnati Bengals were down double digits. I was MFing the entire time because, of course, Mike Tomlin is going to do this to me, who has been a detractor of his for so long. But in that modicum of hope, that sliver of hope that I had when Jamar Chase caught it. By the way, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, thank you for the performances, boys. We're inching towards 1,500 yards already with them. I'm proud of those two. But
Hot CD.
But
Yep.
But Jamar Chase ties the game. It looks like the Bengals are going to escape with a victory in a game that they didn't deserve to win. Joe Burrow threw 4 interceptions in that game, even fumbled as well, so 5 total turnovers, but they could win. But Minkah Fitzpatrick blocks it. And then in overtime, the two teams share missed field goals. The Bengals get, I believe, sacked or whatever out of field goal range, and then the Steelers end up winning by a field goal. Utter insanity from that game. You have the Washington Commanders and Jaguars game. That was a close game. You have the Cleveland Browns Carolina Panthers game that was won by a field goal. And this one and this one of all them hurt me the most. This hurt my soul the most. The Colts and Texans game tied had nothing to do with the fact that I picked the Colts to win. It had to do with the repercussions of what happened, which was Rodrigo Blankenship did miss a field goal in this game that could have won the game for the Indianapolis Colts. But sadly, he did not. The game ends in a time. Rodrigo Blankenship gets cut by the Colts. I was not happy about that when I saw that, just for the record. Once again, MFing in the chat to the Indianapolis Colts. But just a wild week one when it came to the kicking on all sides. And, of course, that Broncos-Seahawks game, we'll give that its own little time in a second here. But just kicking was up and down. And I think the best tweet that I heard from someone was the thing to summarize it was hug your kickers. Just hug your kickers if you got a good one here. Rick, I was despondent with all these performances. What do you have to say about how the kickers performed this weekend?
We like that position for a reason, right? Well, this was a little challenging of a week for all of us. And I think one thing you didn't mention either was Greg Zuerlein was atrocious. Greg Zuerlein was absolutely abominable for the Jets. It wasn't a close game, fine, but, come on, Greg DeLay, you're better than that. It was weird. It was a very weird week because those kickers, that was the story of all last postseason with Evan McPherson. And the fact that he dovetailed a 29-yarder left, so far left, it reminded me of when Mike Vanderjagt missed that kick in the Colts playoff game. It was so far left that it couldn't even turn right. That's how bad it was. And look, props to Cade York. Props to the Browns for getting that long 58-yarder to win it and spoil Baker Mayfield today. It was beautiful. Young Hoi Koo almost had a 64-yarder got blocked. McManus almost had a 64-yarder and missed it. Like, it all came down to the kickers in week 1 in a lot of games. So I think we're going to see a recovery in week 2, honestly. But that being the story of week 1 is interesting to me. And I know it hurts your soul, Jerk, but at the same time, like, it just reminds you how important and how valuable getting a good kicker is to a team. Because it can make the difference between winning a loss, or in the Colts' case, a tie.
Yeah, and also not just a good kicker, but good long snapper. Because I think in one of the games where the situation ended up, it was because it was the backup long snapper didn't snap the ball correctly, and there was an issue with the laces. Like, it just goes to show what a certain legendary punter has been saying on the internet for a couple of years now. The GOAT himself, Pat McAfee, is that, you know, the kicking operation, the punting operation, it matters. And I think people are starting to really understand that a little bit more, and you know, that's thanks to the likes of a great man like Pat McAfee himself. Thank you, Pat. Hashtag for the brand, of course. You know, we went over a couple of those games. Justin, I don't know, do you have any more comments about the kickers, or is my crying and Rick's explanation enough for the people?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't touch upon Butker getting hurt.
True.
And I mean, yeah, there was a lot. There was misses left and right. I mean, even in games where it didn't affect the outcome, there was misses all the time.
Yeah.
And it's the Panthers were robbed.
Panthers were robbed. Oh, man.
Rules, man.
So
the ref really said that's what happened, but we're not going to do anything about it. And then they left the game-winning field goal anyways. So
yeah, it was a rough one for all of us, say the least. We all had a couple rough losses in that game. No doubt. Well, in the week overall, no doubt. So aside from the kicking, which, you know, like Rick said, we pray and hug your kickers tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Quite a lot. Like, it was such a hectic week 1. I don't know if we're going to really do justice, so we're going to try to hit as many points as we can here. But another thing that was key this week, the blown leads, boys. Blown leads, to say the very least. Not a surprise that the Atlanta Falcons are one of the teams I have to bring up here after having a 26-10 lead relatively early in the fourth quarter after a young way.
Fourth quarter, Jameis.
Yeah. They had a 16-point lead. They completely choked it. Like you said, back-to-back touchdowns for Michael Thomas, and then Will Lutz actually with the clutch kick at the end to give a victory to the Saints. The Pittsburgh Steelers had a bit of a lead. They nearly blew it, but then they ended up winning the game, so they are spared from this. But the Philadelphia Eagles, really, it was a lot closer of a game than it should have been. They were up by 17 points within the last 2 minutes of the third. Detroit scores a couple times to make that game close before ultimately not being able to get it back. So, Rick, big Lions loss right there. I just look at the other games. The Colts-Texans, of course, was a big one. The Tennessee Titans and the Giants was a big one. A lot of blown leads in this one. A lot of blown leads. Justin, what was your reaction to these? Just no one can hold on to a 10-point lead anymore, man. Like, it's wild. Well,
I mean, as you would say, Jerg, death, taxes, and the Falcons blowing a double-digit point lead in the fourth quarter. It's not football season without it. A little disappointing. I mean, even though I picked the Saints, I was rooting for the Falcons there. It would be nice to see them win a game. Yeah, those blown leads were exciting. I think it's exactly what the NFL needed. I mean, especially that 49ers-Bears game that, you know, just decimated my picks this week. That and the Broncos. Who would have said week 1 going in that the Bears and the Seahawks were going to win? That would have been a great parlay. Someone should have chosen. But, Jags tie, Bears win, Seahawks win, probably would have won like $1 million.
Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
Right. That would have been absolutely wild, to say the least. Rick, your reaction. Obviously, you know, close games and blown leads are fun, but what, like, is it maybe a case to say, Rick, that maybe aside from the 49ers game in particular, like a lot of the blown leads were by bad teams, essentially?
I hate New Jersey. I'm going to put it that way. Yeah. My thing is that in soccer, we talk about how a 2-goal lead is never safe. Because, you know, 2-0 is fine, but if it gets 2-1, you start to, like, lose a little bit. Well, apparently, like you said, Jurg, 10-point leads are now the standard of football. They're not safe anymore. So there were just a ton of games that, like you said, and it might be just week 1. It might be just week 1 rust that, like, these leads are getting blown because the teams are being complacent, because they're realizing it's not the preseason anymore. Maybe the thing is that this change to a 3-game preseason is still taking effect on all these teams. because you used to have 4 games, and you think that 4th game, okay, we got our starters out, we can kind of coast a bit. It means nothing. Well, oh God, it's week 1. Oh, get the kicker out there, get out, go play. So maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it's like a little mind game almost potentially.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think everyone is still getting, especially because of the pandemic, and like the NFL instituted the change to the preseason during the pandemic. I think that's really one big factor that everyone is still getting used to here, to say the least. So those were some big stories. Let's go into a little detail for a couple of games. It's not going to be for everyone. We're just going to tackle a game here. Rick, I'm going to throw it to you first, because I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this. So like I mentioned, the Eagles-Lions, they ended up playing a game that was closer than what you would have thought going into that fourth quarter. The Lions scoring 2 touchdowns in the fourth. The interesting part of this game, really, the fact that the Eagles, they scored 38 points, but Jalen Hurts did not throw a single passing touchdown. He was only 18 of 32 for 243 yards. Now, there was still some good receiving performances. A.J. Brown was a monster. Got to give all due respect for him. Maybe I should have put him instead of CeeDee Lamb in my 1,500-yard prediction. But, there was still some good receiving by the Eagles. But are you yes, they won the game. Yes, they scored a lot of points, Rick. Can you, is there something to point out in the concern that Jalen Hurts, he was average and the Eagles still won?
So sometimes you have to take a game not at a win or loss level. And I know I said when we were talking that my pick was kind of right. And Justin, being the guy that he is, said, yeah, well, the Lions still lost, which is fair. They did still lose. But the Eagles, when I picked this game, I said they had no wide receiver depth. They didn't. They A.J. Brown caught his 10 passes, but who was next on their depth chart? Dallas Goedert, tight end, Miles Sanders, a running back? There was no wide receiver depth. Devontae Smith was totally shut out in this game. So, yeah, is it concerning that Jalen Hurts didn't throw a touchdown pass? Sure. But at the same time, I think he gashed the Lions D, and that was a bit of a surprise. I think they had about maybe 500 all-purpose yards on the offense, which you can't win a game giving up that many yards to guys that have no knees, because the Lions ate all their knees, basically. That's how it was. I will say this. DeAndre Swift had a nice game. Jared Goff kick rocks, just how it is. Can't wait for them to draft a quarterback in 2023, because Goff was unimpressive in the first half, and really that's kind of what blew it, because if Goff does not make that bad throw that James Bradbury picks off and takes for a touchdown, we're talking about a totally different game. So, as much as Jalen Hurts didn't really have anything in the tank passing-wise, he didn't make any mistakes like Goff did. So, he managed the game well. And that's a compliment and an insult. He was a game manager who won a game, but he didn't do anything special, but he still won the game. Goff lost.
That's pretty fair. And Detroit, for the position they were in, to be able to be that close to winning that game, big improvement for them from last season. And like you said, you were on the money, Rick, because A.J. Brown was the only receiver, forget just, over 30, 40 yards. He was the only wide receiver technically by position to even get over 12 yards. No other wide receiver by that position got more than 12 receiving yards in that game for the Eagles. So that's a big concern. Dallas Goedert was the only other guy. Yes, they were able to take advantage, but it's going to be interesting to see how that situation continues to develop in and of itself for Philly. Justin, I want to throw another game to you, because we're going to mention a couple of these teams, a little bit later on as we go. 2 of them in particular, because they played on Thursday night. So I'm not going to go into those games in specific. Let me throw to you the Buccaneers-Cowboys game here, Justin. It was a very low-scoring game, of course. It ended up being 19-13 in the Buccaneers' favor. At some point in the second half, I think it was the third quarter, maybe it was the early fourth. My memory is a little foggy with it, but Dak Prescott gets hurt towards the end of that game, and that essentially killed what little chances that the Cowboys probably had there. It was all killed when he got hurt. For them, ultimately. They just didn't look that impressive offensively. Defense, for the most part, actually played pretty well. Tom Brady, only 18 for 27, touchdown and an interception. Kind of give it from both sides, Justin. Yes, Tampa won, but, why? It's a good win, but why is it not as impressive as, the final score indicates?
Because they probably should have won by a lot more. I know Chris Godwin got hurt. I know Julio Jones a little bit older, although he did play very well. He was a little bit gassed towards the end. But we really saw a lot of the issues that we thought were going to come to the forefront of these teams during the season, and they kind of were exemplified during this game. Both teams are going to have major offensive line issues. You saw Dak Prescott was running for his life. The offensive line looked sloppy. They missed all of those linemen there. The running game couldn't get started as a result, and they still have a nasty run defense there in Tampa Bay. And on the flip side, it was the same thing with Tom Brady. I mean, the proven way to beat Tom Brady is to knock him on his ass as many times as you can. And listen, until late in that game, they were kicking field goals. They were kicking field goals left and right. So that's why this game was so low. The offensive line for Tampa is going to be rough. They're not going to get guys back during the season. A lot of the guys are done, especially their center is done for the season. So when you have a rough game like that, and you're going to have linemen that are missing for extended periods of time, you're going to have trouble protecting your 45-year-old quarterback who needs the protection. Now, that being said, I do expect him to still complete some passes to Mike Evans. I think Leonard Fournette looked fantastic against a weaker Dallas team who, again, struggled in a lot more areas than that. I mean, even their receiving depth, really, CD looked like the only person that was worth the target in that offense, and the Bucs knew it, so that's why they doubled him. They ended up holding him to only about 30 yards. So I don't expect the Cowboys to do much even without Dak Prescott now. Dak Prescott, obviously getting hurt late in that game is going to be a rough injury for them. There's a chance now they have a tough divisional schedule now, because I believe they play in the next 4 weeks. They play the Giants and they play the Washington Commanders, who had a very, very good offensive game.
And to bookend real quick, just to bookend those games, Justin, they face the Bengals next, and after that Commanders game, it's the Rams.
They have a legitimate chance of starting 0-5, which is really scary for Dallas. So they better hope they get Dak back as soon as possible. Better hope his hand is okay and it's not going to affect his throwing in the first games, because their schedule starts off rough, and they're going to have a big hole to climb out of if they can't get things right over there in Dallas.
Quick yes or no, Rick, for the Cowboys thing. Next 4 games: Bengals, Giants, your Commanders, and the Los Angeles Rams. Justin thinks it's a real chance of going 0-5. What do you think about that?
0.
Oh, that.
You think they'll win a game?
You think they'll win?
Well, okay. So if I'm looking at the next 4 games on the schedule, and I'm looking at Dallas, I'm saying Cooper Rush is my starting quarterback. I don't have a lot of confidence in that. I don't. Now,
I thought you said there's a chance of winning.
Oh, maybe he thought I said, could they win a game? I think that's why.
Yeah. Now, what I found interesting was that there was a poll that was run where they asked, what are the odds of Dallas getting a starting quarterback, or who would you rather it be? And some of the names they were throwing out were a little ridiculous, including there was a 66-1 choice named Ben Roethlisberger. Could you just imagine Ben Roethlisberger in a Jerry Jones-led Dallas Cowboys outfit with all the stuff that has happened and that we know that he's done, and they kick out Randy Gregory for worse? Like, really? Ben Roethlisberger's your guy? Okay.
I mean, it's Jerry Jones. I actually couldn't imagine. To be fair,
it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah. I was really surprised they haven't made one. Maybe they'll make one after this Bengals game here, but it will be interesting to see the Cowboys going forward and what that situation ends up becoming. In the meanwhile, game that I'll just go over here really quick as the technical difficulties continue for one of us. Which, I mean, to be fair to Rick, he's on the road. He's doing this for the people. I'm not saying that to throw a shot at him. It's just like the man is doing real work here. I just want to just circle back to a game that we kind of touched upon, but just like the absolute absurdity of the game. Actually, no. I need to lord over someone's grave here really quick. The Giants and Titans game, truly God's work was done in that game, and I cannot stress it enough. But in all actuality, Justin, I think what we saw in this game was a early indication of what we've been saying for the last couple of years, and that if you can find a way to stifle Derrick Henry, and if you can force it to become a Ryan Tannehill game, the Titans aren't going to win. 21 carries for 82 yards, that's fine, but that's not Derrick Henry, right? That's a good game, but that's not a Derrick Henry game. And Ryan Tannehill, like, you could say he played fine with going 20 of 33, 266 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's kind of the norm in the NFL now. That's not a special performance, that stat line. And I think it just goes to show that the Tennessee Titans, especially in the receiving game, look, I loved him before the draft. I forget who I had him mocked to. I want to say maybe I had the Giants taking him, but Kyle Phillips. Ironically, actually, the Giants taking him and he ends up playing against them. But Kyle Phillips, 6 catches, 66 yards. If that's who your top receiver is going to be week in and week out, I think we got some problems in Tennessee. I think we got a couple problems with the Titans there. So the Giants being able to come back, like I said, we gave the props earlier, Dayball and Daniel Jones. Shout out to Saquon Barkley for the 164 yards and touchdown that he had, plus the 2-point conversion to win. It's a big year for Saquon. This is a contract year after them picking up his 5th-year option. He came to play at least week 1. If he could be healthy, like, of course, our hopes for the Giants still sky high for the season overall? Nope. But could they maybe get another win like this, as the season progresses? Absolutely, they could. And a very winnable game for them coming up here in week 2 against the Panthers. Like, the Giants have some momentum, and this is really the first time in a long time we've been able to say that about them, to say the very least. Let's kind of say we've gone over a lot of the games here. I don't. We've made mentions. Good thing about the Would You Rather is some analysis will come as the phone falls out of place. Really, the last one we've got to talk about, boys, the Monday Night Football debacle in and of itself, more of a debacle than Rick's phone not wanting to stay up for him. The Denver Broncos and Seahawks game. Russ's return in Seattle, marred by absolute booing, marred by people, just not caring if they saw him, but more importantly, marred by
we expected.
Yeah, right. The loss.
The product on the field.
Yeah. It was rough to say at least. 17-16 was the final score there. The Seattle Seahawks ended up winning that game. I said this on earlier in the week, and I will say it again. The Denver Broncos, to me, are the first team I've seen in a while that choked a game without ever having the lead at any point. That's a pretty rare company you find yourself in, Denver, because that was their game for the taking, to say the very least. There's a lot of different ways to break this down. But of course, for all we could say and all that I have already said, I don't think there's any other way to better encapsulate what happened than the very final Broncos possession of the game. They get the ball back down 1, 4.5 minutes to go. First minute plus of that possession, they only got like 11 yards. So just 1 first down. Whole 3.5 or whole 4 minutes essentially that they got, they only gained like 30 total yards. And they put Brandon McManus in a terrible spot to have to forcing him to kick a 64-plus yarder that he really shouldn't have had to, or at least they could have gotten closer, which, again, terrible management. Justin, because to me, the communication between Russ and Hackett was off the whole night. If you really look back and see it, Russ was looking to the sideline a lot. There was something wrong with the communication for the Broncos that entire game. I don't know what it was. I mean, I was smiling at the end of the day because, look, I have a couple teams here that if bad things happen, I have no qualms over. I will sleep perfectly at night. Tennessee Titans, of course, are public enemy number 1 for me. Russell Wilson is public enemy number 2. So I had absolutely no issues with the fact that the Denver Broncos lost that game embarrassingly. But Justin, what was your reaction to just the utter breakdown of what happened to Denver there? Like, not even just the loss, just it looked like they didn't know what they were doing at the end.
They were outcoached, plain and simple. They came out. Seattle came out, had a game plan. They knew they knew Denver wouldn't be able to stop them. They really could not figure out how to stop Geno Smith, who was running all over the field. He was connecting to his tight ends. He was they let the receivers distract the secondary and the coverage, and there were tight ends running free. And Denver made enough mistakes that they could not catch up later in the game. They did happen to have a good halftime adjustment defensively, but I mean, they were straight up out coached. The clock management was terrible towards the end of the game. The play calling was not brilliant. There's a blueprint for the offense that Denver wants to run, and that blueprint is Seattle when they had a decent running game and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett cruising down the field. You're either going to run the ball and you're going to get big yardage with your 2 bruising running backs, or you're going to throw it over the top. There's no other way to run that offense. You're not doing, you're not winning on little crossing routes and in little, onesie twosie plays. Although you have to get that stuff there, but you have to connect. You have to break off those big plays with Russ. And if anyone has the ability to do it, it's Russ, and it's those crazy speedy receivers they have in Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. They didn't look like they were doing any of that. They had no intention of breaking off big plays, of making these plays that Russell Wilson has made a career on. And even with all of your hatred, Jerg, does anyone throw a nicer ball into the basket down the field than Russell Wilson? I mean, that dude just connects on long passes. Besides Rick, you gonna say Aaron Rodgers? Oh, okay. Aaron Rodgers throws a great Hail Mary, but Russ connects on so many long balls. He did it for his entire career. He was doing it with Doug Baldwin. He did it with Golden Tate. He did it with DK Metcalf. He did it with Tyler Lockett. It is just what he excels at. Get those guys running down the field with space, and Russ will give you touchdowns. And it looked like they had no intention of doing that. They had one long play. Jerry Jeudy broke because he had an excellent run after contact. Russ delivered a nice ball to him. It was a good play, but where was the big? It didn't look like they were trying any of that to me.
Yeah, and it's really telling that they have strengths they didn't play to their strengths, and that's really a confusing thing. And maybe you could just chalk it up to, like you said, just getting out coached and Nathaniel Hackett still trying to figure things out. But that end of the game, man, like I know there's things to say about just how the game, but that end of the game, like I think it's something to be highly scrutinized.
Did you see the Peyton Manning thing where he was like, all right, let's call time. He called like timeout like 62 times in the 40 seconds that it took for the Broncos to call timeout.
It was absolutely
40 seconds in the last 2 minutes waiting to call a timeout, and they still called the timeout.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
So let me ask this question then: how much of that is on the packet, and how much of it is on Russell Wilson not knowing the clock in his old stadium? That's my thing too. That I understand, the play calling might have been off, and the communication was definitely off, but we're not talking about a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback. We're talking about a rookie head coach and a Super Bowl winning quarterback who should have won 2 had it not been for them not giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch to the 1 yard line. Just putting it out there. But regardless, I don't know. To me, there's blame all around here. I think Hackett definitely has some blame because he went into a new environment. He was kind of new. He was kind of green to the whole thing. But I look at Russell Wilson and I say, I understand, but great quarterbacks make the calls on their own. And yeah, you can say whatever you want about Aaron Rodgers being, I'm trying to think of a good word here that the British can call him, a pissant, if you will, for being the guy that he is. But he at least knew when the offense wasn't working from Matt LaFleur that he would be the one to take charge and make those calls. Why is Russell Wilson not saying, listen, Nathaniel, it's the first Chiefs game of the year for you. I get it, but I know how to win here. I've won here plenty of times in the past. I know how to take care of this and manage the 12th man. Let me run this. I'll take care of your 2-minute drill. We'll give you your first win. And then that next Saturday, those guys over there in New York with that damn deer will talk about you along with Eberflus and Daboll and all of them. Instead, no, Hackett, go over to the sideline with the other first-year coaches that didn't win a game. Like, ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I'm all for more Russell Wilson slander. I will say it is certainly something to consider, and I think for a bulk of the game in and of itself, I definitely put some of it on Russ. And hey, maybe the whole I already said it earlier this week, and I'll say it again: the whole "let Russ cook" propaganda. I'm very happy that it's getting exposed a little bit here and there, to say the very least. Maybe the whole "let Russ cook" thing was just as it is, as I just said. Maybe it's more propaganda, and that if you actually try to let him cook, you get a kitchen fire. You don't get that amazing 3-course meal that the kitchen just goes and Gordon Ramsay is out here MFing him on one of the shows that he ends up hosting and just kicks him out the kitchen. But this is why
celebrities are personal chefs, Jerry. Let's be honest here.
True. But yeah, that game overall, just it was Denver's for the taking, man. I mean, who would have thought, guys, that the Seattle Seahawks were trading away their franchise quarterback in the offseason, that they already have their next franchise quarterback. They don't even need to wait for the draft. They already have their next franchise quarterback right there from good old West Virginia himself via the New York, tri-state and New Jersey in and of itself, because not only did this man get knocked out when he was a Jet, he was also the very same man who ended the Eli Manning Iron Man streak. He is a legend in both Jets and Giants lore, and he starts in that game for Seattle and gets them the revenge win over Russell Wilson. Is Geno Smith a Seattle Seahawks Ring of Honor, future recipient? I think so.
No! Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Justin, I think you'll sympathize with me on this. You ever have a team that you root for that you have a guy who's on your team who you want to see do well, and he's terrible, and then he goes somewhere else, and he's really freaking good? As a Mets fan, that's basically been my entire 1990s life. And seeing Geno Smith do that with, of all teams, the Seahawks, who were the only team in the NFC West to get a win last week, Like now they're gonna start putting out NFC West champion shirts and hats and whatever for the Seahawks. Look.
Listen, the
Get a
Broncos have
deal
a
for
chance.
that, put it at the Space Needle, call it a day. It's 1 week, whatever.
Listen, the Broncos have a chance to actually, right the ship here. They should have another easy opponent. Can you imagine if they can't win against the Texans? The Texans had a strong showing last week against a team that was supposed to be very good.
Can you imagine they tie that game?
Really disappointing team with a new quarterback.
Jerk, stop with the time.
No. So my theory is that all four AFC South teams again will be devoid of a win, and again, 2 of them play each other.
Perfect. That's beautiful.
No, honestly though, it's what's really interesting about that division is how quickly that turnaround could be, because the Houston Texans play the Denver Broncos, should lose, but we'll see what happens there. I don't necessarily know if I trust the Broncos after that. And if the Broncos lose, oh my God, the amount of flack Russ is going to get is going to be unlimited.
Give it to me, baby. Give it to me.
The Tennessee Titans, after a rough showing, are playing a Bills team that beat up on a team that we thought was going to be very good this year. So I don't really think that's going to be much of a contest. And the Jacksonville Jaguars have not lost to the Indianapolis Colts at home in 4 years.
That's wild.
And the Colts are coming off a very disappointing week 1 loss. Week 1 tie. So at the end of week 2, we could have a sole first place Jaguars team with, things starting to look up over there.
Yeah. I knew you were going to say that, so the phone just died.
Oh man, that's absolutely outstanding.
I knew you were going to say that, and so when I knew you were going to say that, I knew the phone was dead at that point. Like, how dare you? The Jacksonville Jaguars first place in the AFC South. Come on now.
Who else is it going to be?
I mean, it could be the Colts.
Doesn't seem like anyone wants to win that division.
Very true. Very true. Very true. How long until at least all 4 of them have at least a win?
It could be a while. Both teams had opportunities to win that game in Houston last week, and it did not seem like either team wanted to win. And now Pittman is out. Their young rookie receiver Alec Pierce is out with a concussion. Who are they going to throw the ball to?
Jonathan Taylor is going to rush for 300 yards.
They're going to need him to rush for 300 yards because otherwise Jacksonville.
They're going to throw it to Mo Alley Cox, obviously.
Listen, Jacksonville is going to have the ability to throw the ball. I know Trevor Lawrence had some overthrows, had some misses. He had settled down a little bit last week, but James Robinson is going to run that ball, and they're going to throw the ball. Zay Jones had a good game. Marvin Jones had a decent game. Christian Kirk 125 yards or something like that. Like, they're going to throw the ball, and they're going to make completions. And if they had trouble stopping that Houston pass attack, I'm really curious to see if Jacksonville ends up being on top of the AFC South after this week.
It will be interesting, to say the very least, what could happen. I mean, if I'm the Colts, I'm just calling every single tight end I've had over the last little while. Is Kobe Fleener still available? Is Jack Doyle? Who's that running back that they had in Andrew Luck's rookie season who was good and we just never saw from him again? Vic Ballard.
I was going to say Trent Richardson.
I could give Trent Richardson a call. Give whoever you got to give a call. Is Reggie Wayne? Maybe does he have it for one more game? Who knows? If you're the Colts, because at this point it's looking rough.
Why don't we just get Dallas Clark too? Come on, get him as well. Get Dallas Clark. You know what? Get Jim Harbaugh back.
I'm all for it. What's he doing this weekend? Probably
Austin Collie.
Oh my God, Austin Collie. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, I could be wrong. It's either Austin Collie or another wide receiver. I might be confusing my wide receivers for the Colts here, but one of them, they dropped the pass from Peyton, and the coaching staff was telling them to get back on the field, and Peyton was shooing him no, you get your ass on the sideline. You're not coming back on the field. And the coaching staff was trying to tell him, and Peyton literally looked at the sideline no, he's staying off. It sounds like it probably was Austin Collie, to be fair. It
sounds like Austin Collie, yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, so God, what a Monday Night Football. What a game. What a week. What a week 1 was. And is week 2 going to follow suit? Well, we'll see. And you got to start out strong if you're going to match what was the insanity of week 1. And Week 2 tried its best in doing so with Thursday Night Football last night, or no, excuse me, 2 nights ago as we're recording this. But from you talk about blowing double-digit leads here, boys. Another double-digit lead got blown in this one, although, to be fair, not in the fourth quarter, so maybe not as entertaining. But the Kansas City Chiefs and Los Angeles Chargers, two teams that are going to be vying in that AFC West division that is going to be very vaunted this year. They battled, and Kansas City wins round 1 of their encounters this season. Final score 27-24 here. The LA Chargers held a 10-point lead early in that game, actually within the first seconds of the second quarter. They were leading that game 10-0, but the Kansas City Chiefs were able to just follow suit. The Chargers actually did go up by 10 again, 17-7, but Kansas City, they made that lead vanish very quickly. They ended up scoring 20 points in a row after they were down 17-7 to take a 27-17 lead. Game was made close in the final minute and a half, but it was too little too late for the Chargers. Final score, like I said, 27-24. What a game. Both quarterbacks relatively well. Justin Herbert did his best, 334 yards and 3 touchdowns, 1 interception that was very costly because it was a pick 6. Running game didn't do great. Austin Eckler was their leading rusher with 39 yards. Mike Williams did pretty good, but of course no Keenan Allen hurt them. And then on the other side, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, it wasn't spectacular, to say the least. He did find 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, good completion percentage, but it was really an overall effort, particularly from that defense, I think stands out here, boys. Rick, your thoughts on that Thursday Night Football matchup as best you can give them, because as we know, you have issues with Thursday Night Football and Al Michaels, apparently.
Yeah, I do have issues with Al Michaels. I will not speak his name further. It was like Mahomes and Herbert were gunslinging, and the first one to blink was the one that would lose. Herbert blinked. He threw a pick, and it was a pick 6. I want to say, though, I want to give – I forget what his name is. Justin Winton, I think his name, or something like that. The cornerback with the pick 6. I forget what his name is. But his story is incredible because there's a 7th round unheralded draft pick who apparently last year was working with his mom at a Wendy's and now just picked off arguably one of the top 5 quarterbacks in all the NFL, or the top 5 young quarterbacks, rather, for a pick 6. But I got to be honest with you. Kansas City, again, it was a game management position. Like, their offense it was there. Like, yeah, Mahomes didn't do anything wrong, but that one interception changed the course of the entire game because Kansas City looked kind of sluggish, and maybe that's LA Chargers defense. You got to give them a little credit there, too, but I don't know. It wasn't the same Kansas City high-octane offense we're used to, and I think that might be something we have to adjust ourselves to in the future, is that if this is the Chiefs' offense now, it's wholly different from how things were last year and in the Super Bowl run, too, because they just don't have the spark plug in the Tyreek Hill that they used to have, I think. Because I looked at, like, their stats because hell, I'm watching the game with that stupid commentator on there and being like, I didn't really see anything impressive. So, I don't know. That's just me.
Right, and really, it's a swap from what the story of Week 1 was for both teams. As I kind of, we didn't really touch on them in the review segment because we're going to briefly do that here. The Chiefs, it was the offensive outpouring in Week 1 that gave them the win, 44-21 Chiefs over the Cardinals. Mahomes had the 5 touchdowns there. And then on the other side, it was the Chargers' 24-19 victory where the defense did its job. It was the 3 interceptions by the Los Angeles Chargers on Derek Carr that really set them up for the victory there. By the way, the player that you were talking about, Rick, Jalen Watson, like you said, 99-yard interception. Outstanding for him. And that story I saw this morning, just one of those inspirational things in sports that you love to see. It was really a flip of the script for both sides, where for the Chargers, it was Justin Herbert and the offense that were really trying to get it and ultimately kept them as close as they were. Meanwhile, it was the Chiefs defense. It was only one play, but it was the most important play of the game, to say the least. Justin, what were your thoughts on that Thursday night matinee?
I do want to say, as much as I want to agree with you, Rick, that offense looked potent in Week 1, and we all saw the defensive additions that this Charger team made in the offseason. They got J.C. Jackson back for his first game of the year. Khalil Mack has been stellar. Bosa is, still Bosa. So they have a lot of great players there. And that defense is, I would say, worlds better than what Arizona currently has or currently put on the field as far as last week. So give credit to the defense where credit was due. And I have to agree, we did not give, especially me, did not give any credit to this Kansas City defense going into the season. And they have shut down 2 high-powered offense. Not shut down, but they've played very well against 2 high-powered offenses this year. I know that the Chargers didn't have Keenan Allen. I know that the Cardinals didn't have DeAndre Hopkins. But to hold these teams down and put their foot down and say, hey, we're not going to let you score more than, I think what the Arizona Cardinals only scored like 14 points in the first 3 quarters in week 1. And I know that they scored a late touchdown against the Chiefs on Thursday, but that offense wasn't putting up a ton of points this game. So it's interesting to think that their defense is now going to be much stronger and their offense might have taken off a little bit, but I do think it's more efficient than it was. And instead of relying on big plays left and right, they actually have to play the game the way it's supposed to be played. Patrick Mahomes looks good doing it. He just does.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's certainly like for the supreme talent he is. Like he's really a guy that you could do a lot of different things with, and maybe that is just what we're seeing here. And at the end of the day, it was a very close victory. One thing to note from this game ending on the Chargers side of things, I believe it was if not fractured, at least cracked ribs for Justin Herbert. After that,
rib cartilage.
Rib cartilage.
Punctured rib cartilage.
Punctured rib cartilage. Very ironic considering, he got the start in his rookie season because puncturing into the rib/lungs of Tyrod Taylor. But, sometimes life pays you back. Really interesting to see. I mean, he came back. It was a little bit sluggish, but ultimately finished the game.
It's funny. I knew a rib cartilage in grade school, actually.
Really?
Very funny.
I got to hear the story. You gonna tell us? No. he just wanted to drop the fact real quick. He's just like,
I said I knew a rib cartilage in grade school, so that's me.
All right, there we go. Justin, your thoughts?
Nice guy. Real nice
guy. Justin, your thoughts about it? Jesus Christ. Herbert got hurt. Did come back in. They do the touchdown at the end, so it clearly shows they can still play it. But how much of it should be a concern for the Chargers going forward? I mean, no rest for the weary here this season, especially in the AFC West. Now, they do face the Jaguars next week. Who knows if the Jaguars are leading the division in the AFC South by then. But their next 3 games, at least worth noting, it's the Jaguars, the Texans, and the Browns before their next division game that they have. What do you how is this going to impact the Chargers in the next couple of weeks with Herbert's injury?
It's going to be interesting. Rib injuries tend to linger. I mean, he's lucky it's not a bruise. Maybe the cartilage can heal. I don't know. I'm not really a doctor, but they're lucky that they have a 10-day resting period now before they have to hit the field again. They're lucky it happened on a Thursday night game, and he's considered day-to-day now. So, I mean, I can't imagine it's going to be a major injury going through the season, but you never know with those kinds of things. So it's going to be interesting. The Chargers need him on the field. There's a big difference with him on the field and him off the field, as everyone would know when you lose your starting quarterback. Except unless you're the Jets, I guess, maybe, who knows. But at least for the Chargers, there's a big difference. So they need him there. They hope to get Keenan Allen back in the next couple of days also. And if he's got to sit out 1 week, I guess a Jacksonville game is probably not the worst.
Right. To be fair, and like you said, maybe the Jets are the only team that wouldn't mind losing their current starting quarterback for somebody else in this case. I think the only game we didn't cover in any way, but I don't really think much needs to be said about Jets Ravens week.
My preseason MVP, bro.
Oh man. So, Rick, any comments about the injury for the Chargers? I mean, do they even consider resting Justin Herbert, or is this just something they need to adjust the offense to maybe put a little bit less strain on him?
I think if it was any other team, I would say they could probably get away with resting Justin Herbert for a half maybe. But because the Jaguars do have a pretty good offense that can score points, I think Herbert's fine. I mean, it's rib cartilage. It's not the end of the world. I think he's okay. And so I could see him playing the full 4 quarters. Maybe if they're leading by a good portion, take him out in the 4th, just to kind of not risk a 4th quarter injury when you're up by so much. But I don't really see it being that big of a deal, honestly, with him. I think he'll be fine.
Right. And ultimately, that definitely could be the case. I mean, it's just week 2. It's so early on. We don't know. Let's be real. We just don't know. What we do know is, as of now, the Kansas City Chiefs 2-0 in the AFC West, and that a big thing for them to be able to start 2-0 after a lot of people were, throwing some doubts about them and not picking them to be first in the division here. This is big for them to start out 2-0, especially because right now, the Chargers have a win, but the other two teams as of now are winless. So that's a pretty big deal for Kansas City to get this leg up as early as they can in the division, with a division win, actually. Mind you, with that victory over the Chargers, now they have that edge going into whenever that second Chargers-Chiefs game is. This could be a really big deal for Kansas City as the season goes on. This is a really big game for them to get ultimately at the end of the day. But speaking of being hopeful for big wins, I think that's what we're all hoping for in this next one. Ladies and gentlemen, it's finally time. This is what we've been waiting for. The second week of the Sports Agents of Chaos Pick Challenge is here, and we're all just hoping for stuff at this point. just I'm not looking forward to this either. We all performed terribly, relatively speaking. We all got burned by picks from last week. Especially Justin, he's picking first for a reason here. He performed the worst so far. The standings go 1 point for Justin, 4 points for myself, for Rick, and for Sandoval. So there's a 3-way tie at the top of the mountain right now. And who will gain advantage? Will Justin leapfrog us? Will me and Rick stay tied? Will Sandoval beat all three of us this week, or at least one of us? Who knows? Will Sandoval outright take first place? There's actually a chance that might happen at any point, and I'm both looking forward to and dreading that at the same time here, boys. So let's not waste any more time here. The week 2 of the pick challenge begins now. Justin, my friend, you hold the first overall pick this week.
Yeah. And instead of picking a team to lose, I think I'm gonna have to pick a team to win. It's an interesting pick because there's a lot of games here that I'm not super confident in, and a lot of spreads that are very, very big. I know that we also have to pick that underdog, so that's important. But I think with my first pick, I'm going to go with what I think is going to be the closest to a sure thing. Teams that just match up the best, in my opinion. And for that, I'm going to say it's going to be the Bengals beat the Cowboys at 4 o'clock, 4:25 this Sunday.
Give yourself a little bit of time in there in case you get your heart broken early on with some of those 1 p.m. games, eh?
Yeah. I'm speechless at this point, Jurg. The Seahawks and the Bears won.
Hey,
those teams.
Hey, brother, I'm grasping for straws too. I texted you a little bit earlier. It's like, there are not a lot of upset games I'm that confident in this week. There just aren't.
No, they're not.
It's slim pickings. Which maybe is a good thing for us, because if we can give Sandoval the worst of the worst, maybe that might play in our favor. Sandoval does have the telepathic communication, or at least maybe he just picked all games and whatever is left over. Rick has that listed in there some way, shape, or form. So, but that'll be towards the end, of course. We all have 4 picks to make. Rick, let's go over to you next. Your 4-point pick, of course, actually, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. This is my poor judgment on my end. Just to recap for anyone that's watching this for the first time, the way our Sports Agents of Chaos Pick Challenge works, we all pick 4 games for the week that we're all confident in. At least one of them needs to be an upset, so the team that is currently favored to lose the game, we have to pick them to win. And we divide it into a 4-point game, a 3-point game, a 2-point game, and a 1-point game, which is our confidence level in the result happening. Whatever's left over, Sandoval gets, and potentially a point multiplier on him, depending on how many games he gets left over for a week. That's the way it goes. If you want to be like me and spread a little bit of chaos one of these weeks, which I will do at some point, boys, you can pick a tie, but the tie needs to be used with your 4-point game. So that is the big thing right there. If you want to predict a tie, ladies and gentlemen, you got to use your 4-pointer. So I enjoyed the tie between the Colts and Texans to an extent, but I didn't call it, and it was my 4-point game. So sadness. All that out of the way. Rick, your 4-point game this week.
So I'm in a dilemma here. Do I go easy, or do I go for an upset knowing that I picked my games before the season even started, and there are only now 3 remaining upset picks that I had because Justin took Cincinnati, Dallas. So
You're gonna pick Dallas?
Well, I didn't expect Prescott to get hurt.
I think he was talking about from going into the season. He probably would have penciled this in.
Yeah.
So I thought you were picking this week. I was like, what?
So my question is, do I get saucy with my 4-point pick, or do I go for it at 3, hoping that when Jerk sneaks, he doesn't go back from the 4 to the 3. Because there are a couple of games that I think are easy to pick. All right, I'll go with an easy 4-point game then. Cleveland over the Jets.
Wow. That was going to be
Joe Flacco is still my starting quarterback. I hate my life. Cleveland over the Jets.
Oh, that makes sense. And like Rick was alluding to there, ladies and gentlemen, once someone has picked a game, it is off the table for everyone else. So no going against things like Justin kind of mentioned that would have probably been his upset for this week. He can now not pick that game for his upset of Jets over Browns. He has to go to another game with that. So now that has been established, we go to me. And like Rick mentioned, it is a snake format between the three of us. So whoever gets a third pick also gets the immediate pick after, because this is a little bit of this is a serpentine, as John Gruden would say, format here. Not a lot of games I'm fairly confident in for the 4-pointer. Like there are a couple here. There were a couple going into this week, very similar to Rick. There were a couple where I'm like going into this, I'm like, oh my God, yes, this would be my 4-pointer. But now I'm just like, But I got to be confident in someone, and I'm going to be confident in the still defending Super Bowl champions to be able to bounce back. And they got the perfect team too, because even if they're losing by 10 points, I know they're going to come back in the fourth quarter. I'm going with the Rams over the Falcons here. If the Rams are winning in the fourth, I win. If the Falcons are winning in the fourth, I win. I don't see a way that I can lose this game here. I'm going to so eat crow if I end up being right. So we'll see how that ends up for me, ladies and gentlemen. And me just lording over the Falcons, which kind of sucks because I've podcasted with a good friend who's a Falcons fan. So, if Jelani, if you're ever watching this, know that I feel sorry for you, brother, but I kind of have to make the jokes for your team here. I apologize. So that's my 4-point game. Moving on directly to my 3-point game now. I'm actually going to use this as my upset game because I think I need to take advantage of the upsets while I still have them here, because there aren't too many that I'm that confident in. And because I have to wait a little bit, because you each get 2 picks after this before I pick next, I gotta try to get an upset game that I really like right now, at least one of the few that I like. So I'm looking over the games here, boys, and there's 2 in particular that stand out to me. And like I said, I'm going to try to, because I do another podcast where I pick NFL games, I'm going to try to not go against myself on those pods. I'm going to try to keep it consistent. So there are 2 games here that I picked on the other side that I'm looking at. I'm like, I think I like my odds before these. And I think the more I look at it, this might be a little risky. But I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers over the New England Patriots here.
That's my other one.
Mac Jones got hurt in that first game.
Okay.
I know TJ Watt is out, but I still think the Steelers' pass rush and defense can get to him. If they intercepted Joe Burrow 4 times, I can only imagine what they could potentially do to good old McCorkle Jones. If Bailey Zappi steps on that field, I might be sweating a little bit. But until that happens, I'm confident what the Steelers can do in this one. I got to pick them for my 3-point game. There aren't a lot of upsets that I'm confident in. I got to go with this one immediately. So lock me in as my 3-point game here for the Pittsburgh Steelers over the New England Patriots.
I gotta say that's a decent shout. That's really a decent look over there. And if you believe in Mike Tomlin enough, they go 2-0, then more power to you as a Steelers fan. I think that's great. Okay, you left my upset pick open, so I'm gonna take it now, and it's gonna be extremely saucy, but this is why we do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
3 points. Miami over Baltimore.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I'm driving down to Baltimore, so I'll get run out of town on Monday if it happens. But I think the way that Mike McDaniel had that team coached, I think bodes really well for them. I think it's a team that likes to hit the ground running, and they will punch Baltimore in the mouth. I think what happened in Week 1 was the Jets lacked all of that. They were pretty subpar. And Baltimore sleptwalked through that first half pretty much. Miami's not going to be that team. They are going to punch them in the mouth. Will Baltimore respond is the question. I think this could be a shootout game. I can see Miami taking this, and that's why I'm going with them on 3 points. It's very spicy, but I think it's a good shout because Miami's that team that can really just put the motor down at the very first drive and make something happen. So that's what I'm going with. Miami over Baltimore for 3.
Wow. What? That's like a heck of a 3-point game. That was probably and this is the interesting thing that I think people will learn as we go through the game here, boys, is that some of these games that maybe to some people they're like, oh, they got to pick these. no, we're probably going to make them our 2 and 1 point games in a couple cases. Interesting one right there. I mean, hey, we got to be a little bit risky here with some of these picks. I definitely
Make sure you get what you want.
Yeah, that too. Justin, over to you. You get back-to-back picks now. This is going to be your 3-point game and your 2-point game coming up here. What do we got?
So, for my 3-point game, I was thinking about making it my 4-point game, but this is always a tough game. These teams always play each other very, very strongly.
Oh, I think I know who you're going with.
But they did have a very upsetting loss week 1 against the Giants, and they had a very strong win week 1 against the Rams opening the season. I'm going to say that the Buffalo Bills will beat the Tennessee Titans on Monday night. And for my 2-point game, because it made more sense to pick my upset as a 2-point game if I got to do back-to-back, I'm going to say Tom Brady does not have a lot of success going into New Orleans, especially in his entire Bucs career. And the Bucs are favored by 2.5 points going into going into New Orleans on Sunday. They have some serious offensive line struggles. They actually lost another one of their starting offensive linemen this week with a hyperextended elbow. He'll miss a couple of weeks. I do expect Leonard Fournette and Mike Evans to have good games, but this Saints team is resilient. They have a strong defense, and they do have a strong secondary. I expect them to play well. So I'm going to pencil in my upset as the New Orleans Saints over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I gotta say, on paper, I think you could argue that might be the best upset pick because we like you mentioned it. I don't think Brady's beaten the Saints yet in his regular season career with the Buccaneers.
But that only makes me more upset because he's due.
Yeah,
Brady doesn't go.
Sure.
He doesn't lose consistently like that. So.
True. But at the same time, maybe the Saints just continue it. I mean, that Saints team, they really picked it up in that second half. Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas both looking like absolute weapons there. And I already had questions personally about that Tampa Bay defensive back crew, and I think they got a little bit lucky with the performance that we saw from Dallas, and plus the Dak injury as well in week 1. So I mean, this could be prime pickings here for the New Orleans Saints. And hey, I mean, don't sleep on Taysom Hill running the ball. Like he had a good chunk of rushing yards as well. So there's that. Rick, your 2-point game in this one. You were interesting last week, Rick. You went with 2 upset games. Are we doing that again?
Well, so I'm not confident in either of my upsets that I have remaining, so I'm probably not going to do that. So I'll tell you what I had just because I'm not going to pick them. So if you're interested in them, and if nobody picks them, by rule, this is Sandoval's picks as noted. So my upsets that I had were Carolina over the Giants and Minnesota over Philadelphia. That Minnesota-Philadelphia game is really tricky to me because, again, does the shine wear off on Kevin O'Connell after 1 week? And does Philadelphia move to 2-0, making my life really miserable? Or does Carolina bounce back and beat the Giants at home in a game they should win because Baker Mayfield's better than Daniel Jones, but, is Christian McCaffrey all the way back? So those are the picks that I'm not taking, but those are my week season-long predictions. There's a game here that's an obvious for me, and it's a favorite over underdogs, and if you think that Aaron Rodgers is going to go 0-2 to start the year, I think you're crazy. So my 2-point pick, and I'm going to take these 2 points to the bank, is Green Bay over Chicago.
Yeah.
Look, I think what Matt Eberflus did week 1 with that team, Justin Fields didn't make a lot of mistakes. He found receivers, it worked, but this is Green Bay, man. Green Bay, Chicago, and Green Bay's not going to go to 0-2. And if they do, then Matt LaFleur could be fired by the end of week 3 at this point. So, and I just don't see it. So I'll take Green Bay. Give me the 2 points on that one.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I was kind of looking forward to maybe stealing that game if it had somehow gotten back to me, but it does not. But I mean, I agree with you. I think we all agree with the logic. We don't see as big. I think here's the thing. I think we all expected an upset pick with the Vikings over the Packers in week 1, just based off of everything we were hearing from like going into that first game. And also, it's kind of been a tradition the last couple of years. Death taxes and the Green Bay Packers losing week 1 by a healthy margin. They lost week 1 the last like 3-4 years by a good chunk. And I mean, technically they got better. They only scored 3 points on the opening game last year. They scored 7 this year. So there's technically progress. But in all actuality, it makes sense. If there is a team that the Packers can bounce back against, and maybe Christian Watson won't drop a dime, then it might be the Chicago Bears game. So we'll see there. We'll certainly see in that one. So now I got back-to-back picks. My 2-point game. Like Rick said, there's a lot of games here that could go either way. Like, do I tempt fate and go with 2 of the biggest disappointments from last week to probably win this week? I maybe should. And I can still pick one of them, but I could also wait a little bit. Man. See, there's one game here that I want to pick because I'm fairly confident in the result, but it would also do my NFC wildcard standings, rough if this certain team lost here. So this is a little bit of a pickle for me. So looking over it, actually, and Justin already knows what game I'm talking about here for that one. I guess, you know what, Justin? You know what? Rick just talked about a team that needs to bounce back, that they can't afford to fall down here. I think I'm going to go the same way with my picks here back-to-back. My 2-point game this week, I'm going to go with the 49ers to defeat the Seahawks. I think they need to bounce back. Seattle played great. I think they were able to stifle Hackett, but I think Kyle Shanahan is definitely a step above. Yes, Elijah Mitchell is hurt, but once again, like, Kyle Shanahan can get a running back to go over 75 yards out of thin air. He just has the ability to do it. Now, is that magic maybe running out here? We will see. But I think there's a more than fair shot that they can bounce back. And also, Trey Lance, he can play well in this. I think one of the games he played last year when Jimmy G was out for a very brief period of time, or at least sat, was against the Seahawks, actually, funny enough. So I think Trey Lance will be able to have at least a better bounce-back performance here with Debo and hopefully George Kittle feeling better. I think there's a chance here. So the San Francisco 49ers over the Seahawks are going to be my 2-point game for this one. Now, my 1-point game, it is still, to be, for the people watching, yes, I know it's only 1 point, but this 1-point game can still be very important here, ladies and gentlemen, for a couple of reasons. A, because we want to screw over Sandoval so that damn deer doesn't beat us on a weekly basis. So that's part of the reason. It's funny you mentioned some of the upset games, Rick, because I'm very tempted to take a couple of those games. I'm very tempted to take at least, well, really both the results you kind of mentioned there. There's some temptation brewing in it. And actually, when I was also going over some preseason stuff, I didn't just have them winning week 1. I had them winning week 2 as well. So I'm actually going to go with the Minnesota Vikings to beat the Eagles as my 1-point game. Because honestly, here's the thing. I like bringing up memes and jokes. This is why I'm here. This is why I run the show, because I'm the one that brings up the shits and giggles. The Vikings and the Eagles are the Spider-Man meme. Both quarterbacks were fine last week, but nothing spectacular. For you idiots that are putting Kirk Cousins in the MVP conversation, please get your head checked for concussions. But they were both 1-receiver teams last week. It was Justin Jefferson for the Vikings. No other receiver got over 45 yards, I think. And it was, as we talked about earlier, A.J. Brown for the Eagles. No other wide receiver, to be specific, got over 12 yards last week. But both running games did relatively well, mainly for the Eagles, the running game, whereas for the Minnesota Vikings, Dalvin Cook. If I have to give confidence to one side over the other, I'm going to give it to the Minnesota Vikings. So I'm going to go with the Vikings over Eagles there. So that was
I think that's fair.
Yeah. So those were my picks. My 2-point pick, just for the people that missed it because it was back-to-back. My 2-point pick was the 49ers over the Seahawks, and my 1-point pick was the Vikings over the Eagles. 2 upset week for me. We'll see if that goes well, or if I get upset myself at the end of this. Who knows? Rick, this is your final selection. Your 1-point game.
Now, that 1-point upset doesn't count because if you had no other ones, that couldn't be, because we said upsets are 2 points or over. You have to make it a fair game.
Yes.
Now, I could be that guy and pick a Carolina over the Giants for a couple of reasons. 1, because I picked that. 2, because it's only 1 point. 3, I'm not home this weekend, so the wife can't be angry if I have to jump against the Giants 2 weeks in a row. But I'm tempted to do something that I'm not very proud of. I'm very tempted to do something I'm not very proud of. But I think it's better off, discretion's better part of valor here. It's really hard for me to pick that Detroit-Washington game. It really is. It really is. For obvious reasons.
I had a feeling.
I can't do it. I will leave that game for the damn deer because I don't want to suffer with the 1 point. I want to gain the 1 point this week. And I know exactly how I'm going to do that. Vegas over Arizona is my 1 point this week.
Nice. I was
look,
considering that. I was considering that one.
Arizona's offense is still not right. Vegas needs that victory here, and we all like seeing Cliff Kingsbury fall and fall to pieces. So why not? I had Arizona winning the division. Of course I did. You narcs that are on the comment stream. But at the same time, I had them losing this game in real time. So take that. So Vegas is my 1 point pick.
Cool. There we go. It should be interesting. I think I saw the stat. Funny enough, over the last, I want to say it was 4 seasons, every team that started 0-2 has failed to make the playoffs. So a big week here, especially for those two teams as well, Raiders and Cardinals battling out to try to avoid falling to 0-2, especially the Raiders and what that division could become. Justin, this is your last pick. This is your 1 point pick. Like Rick mentioned, this isn't necessarily a rule. It's not a written down rule, but it's kind of it's honor. It's an unwritten rule, you could say.
I mean,
it's like baseball.
It doesn't make sense to wait that long because you're just going to end up losing that pick also. Because
True.
At that point, all the good games are taken.
Very true.
So, I mean, who am I going to take here as an upset? Who's even left? I'm going to take the Colts. I could take
Carolina.
I could take Carolina. I actually do like Carolina to win this week. But no, I was disappointed last week, but the sting has worn off. I'm ready to get hurt again, Jared. I'm going to bet on your boy, and I'm going to take the Denver Broncos over the Houston Texans. I just think that's clearly the best game left. They really should win this game. They should. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why they wouldn't. I'm not going to predict it. The Texans, they were a surprisingly good team last week. They really should have pulled it out as well. I was rooting for them at the end of the game. But logic tells me they're not going to lose 2 in a row against teams they should have won against. So that being said, I'm going to take the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson will have a good game. And Rick, I want you to tell me not who Sandoval's going to pick. Who are you going to pick in that Washington and Detroit game?
I had Detroit, man. I had Detroit. And I'm not thrilled about it. But, look, my reasoning was sound at the time because, I didn't think Carson Wentz would be as good as he was last week, and he was good for about a half. But Detroit also, like I said, they gave up a lot on the offense to Philadelphia. And who's to say that Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin can't be the same way again there? So, I mean, I had Detroit winning that one. But now I wasn't so sure. And again, if there's nothing more that I would love to see the Commanders and the Giants be 2-0 and tied at the end of the week atop the NFC East. Because no Cowboys and no Eagles, especially for you. So, that was my thought.
Fair. So that means there are 2 games left for Sandoval.
Three.
Three? Really?
So I'll run.
Panthers,
I'll run. That's right. I'll run through everything. So 4-point picks. So Justin's picks are 4 points Cincinnati, right?
Yeah.
3 points Tennessee, 2 points New Orleans, 1 point Denver.
What? Wait, he didn't pick the Bills in the 3-pointer?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Did you pick the Bills?
Yeah.
Who'd you put?
I did the record
so
keeping.
You picked that game, but you picked Buffalo?
I could do the record keeping on this one. I wrote it down.
Yeah.
I'm also driving, so
Yeah, that's
I'm
why
I'm not making fun of it.
I'm driving with a Sharpie in my hand, so
Why? So dangerous.
Rick, that's why we did it. Because
we both recorded the picks.
I'm going to Delaware, man. They don't care. Come on now. Regardless. Okay. So I know for a fact, because Justin's question mark is number 3 for some reason. Cleveland for me is 4, Miami 3, Green Bay 2, and Vegas 1. Jared, you are Rams at 4, Pittsburgh at 3, San Fran at 2, and Minnesota at 1. Justin, maybe win a few games and get more points. Then I'll remember your pick. Maybe how about that instead? And Sandoval's pick, he's taking the Colts as his 3-point pick over the Jaguars. He's going with Carolina as a 2-point for the upset over the Giants, and 1 point for the Lions over Washington.
Yeah,
So
there we go.
That way we all honor the underdog 2 points and up rule, so it works out.
Yeah, true. And also, ladies and gentlemen, one thing to mention: if you get a perfect week where every single one of your picks hits, then you get an extra bonus point for going perfect. So
get this week.
Yeah. So all of us, some potential here. A perfect week would be massive for everyone here. To say less. So, big week 2 of the Sports Agents of Chaos Pick Challenge has come and gone. Who will reign supreme? Who will be at the top next week? You got to, of course, wait and see. Who will fall to a deer? Who knows? who the hell knows? We of course certainly care, because that is one of the highlights of the show. But speaking highlights of this show, we're at the main event. We're at the close. If you've been here for long enough, you already know what time it is. It's a good old-fashioned Rant and Rick's Roastrum Podium. And yes, it says Roastrum, not Roastum. That was a little bit of a fun thing between the three of us, and that's what it's going to be called, damn it. That's what it's going to be called. So Rick, per usual, the floor is yours. Sing us out with what I honestly would argue, and I'm predicting here, Justin, might end up being one of the funnier rants, because, I mean, he's on the road here. I think he's got plenty to rant about this week. So, Rick, the rant is yours. Take the wheel on the show and, get us to the end of this journey as you make your way to the end of yours, slowly but surely.
Well, I want to say that my rant is really going to be a get off my lawn type of angry, aggravated rant about everything, but I do have one thing that, while I was driving, I noticed there's a billboard in New Jersey on the Jersey Turnpike for a Dr. Mike. I don't know who the hell Dr. Mike is. I don't know if any of y'all know who the hell Dr. Mike is, but apparently he is, and the billboard says this, the #1 doctor on YouTube. I didn't realize that social media is where I practice medicine nowadays. I can go earn my doctorate in social media marketing and get a law degree and become an anesthesiologist. Great! Take that billboard down, Jersey. You're already the armpit of the country as it is. Like, why are you doing it worse? Come on now. With that in mind, I want to talk about a real armpit, the Bronx. You are terrible. Who designed New York City and said, let's make these bridges with only 2 lanes, and let's have construction everywhere? There's 5 accidents all over the Cross Bronx Expressway and construction in every part of the damn Cross Bronx Expressway. It took me an hour and a half to get from Upper North Shore, Long Island, to not even across the bridge, to the bridge, to get into New Jersey. Like, this is why nobody likes driving in New York, because you don't know how to make roads or plan a city that is safe for anybody to drive in. And the biggest thing, too, is that at every time there's a little merge going in, there are people peddling by the bus sell you cantaloupe or Gatorade, like for $1 or $1.50. No, I don't want your slimy cantaloupe or your warm Gatorade for $1.50. Like, what are you doing? It's not a hot day, thank goodness, but like, I don't want that stuff. I don't know who doesn't want that stuff. There was a vendor that I saw who just had a squirt bottle of ketchup. What is that gonna do? You have nothing to put the ketchup on. You need a vessel for that condiment. You just have a bottle of ketchup. What is that gonna do? Wash my car with ketchup? Yeah, I needed the interior of tomato red instead of the cloth that we're seeing here. Like, really? Come on, people. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd that this is where we have to be in. I'm driving now at 90 miles an hour. I gotta slow down a little bit because I was being Hollywood freaking Brown here driving 128. But, that's just me. And again, this is what happens when I'm driving and I have like a little bit of road rage. It kind of perks up a little bit. Oh, man. Like I said, we thought Duncan sucks. So I never want to look at the Bronx again, and I'm going to have to at some point anyways, because we all know this is going to be hilarious. So I'll chronicle my trip through the Bronx while drinking a damn Dream World Coca-Cola. It makes me people happy. Oh, man. Duncan sucks. The Bronx sucks. Adam Rank, your bear steak is terrible. You know where I am. Fight me. Kevin Durant, just go away. I don't want to see you anymore.
Oh, my God. That was good. That was good. Oh, Lord. Oh, Justin, do you have anything to comment about that? That may have been the best one yet. I know we always say that, but that was
all time. That one's all time.
Are any cards that
My
like
blood
to your
pressure's
left
at
or right?
101, by the way.
Are
My
any
blood
cards
pressure's
next
at
to you?
101, by the way, so I'm fine. No, of course not.
Okay.
Well, they were, but then I decided to speed up and go faster, and I was going 95. So I passed them. Oh, good. Someone just passed me in a Honda CRV. Great, awesome.
There we go. Because I was gonna say, Justin, could you imagine the visual of Rick is doing like the mid rant, and a car just looks to their side and sees him just losing his mind, but there's nothing in front of him, so the driver's
yeah.
like, what?
I did the waving the Sharpie around for effect. Oh, someone just saw me. Hey, you're from Delaware. That basically.
Rick's just like alienating place after place.
Yep. And we just fixed our relations with the Welsh recently.
Oh, come on. It's all
Amazing
about
time.
the Welsh, isn't it? I love the Welsh now. The Welsh love me. It's fine. Belgium can go kick rocks.
What? You know what? We're going to stop before we get another international incident on this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, per usual, thank you for joining us on a fine weekend. Thank you for joining us on yet another episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. This is kind of going to be the formula throughout the most part of the season. Maybe a little bit more depending on when all of us are actually be able to be in a stable environment. But of course, like I said at the top, me and Justin are going to text him yet again. But we're very thankful that Rick was able to do this. Just absolute what a lad he is. What a lad. This is why he's the podfather, the most dedicated man in podcasting today. Of course, like I introduced at the beginning, Justin with his brand spanking new laptop, the 20th laptop that he's used during the recordings of this, and now we finally hit the jackpot. Absolute perfection. Guys, you already know how this works. We'll be back next weekend to go over this past week, to look into next week, to make our picks, to answer questions, to have fun. Because at the end of the day, the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, we're here to have some fun. We're here to talk football, and we are here to cause just a little bit of chaos. Road rage may or may not be included on a weekly basis. Guys, thank you so much for joining us this week. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode. Per usual, we'll see you guys next weekend. Thank you all. Take care and drive safely.